Hello and welcome everybody. Welcome back here to the winter conference. I'm really thrilled to welcome all of you here for a session about AmplifyFE and showcasing excellence in our communities of practice across that sector. I'm thrilled that we have a co-presenter here today. So hi Lynn, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, hello. Hi, Maren, and good afternoon, everyone. It's lovely to be with you today. My name's Lynn Taylorson. I am a teacher, educator, and mentor in further education. You can follow me at Real-Time EDU there. And I've been really excited to be working with Maren and the team on a wonderful piece of research and engagement that's AmplifyFE, which is what we're here to chat to you about this afternoon.
That's right. And normally in my day job, I'm the CEO of ALT, but in this particular session and for the purposes of the AmplifyFE project, I'm one of the individuals who's working on this new community of practice and also on a bit of research that we want to talk to you about today, and in particular, our sector audit. So we're going to jump right in. This is going to be a really interactive session. We have a few things to share with you and some remixing to do as well. So hi to Sam, who has already said hello in the chat. If you do want to say hello, please do comment in the chat and post any questions you might have as well throughout the session. So AmplifyFE is a network led by ALT in partnership with UFI, the VocTech Trust. And I want to give a big shout out to UFI because they are the funders of this project, which is now in its second year. We launched AmplifyFE in October last year, and it already connects over 1,000 professionals in further education and vocational education, providing a strong networking community for us to share, collaborate, and learn. And we want to first talk to you about today our sector audit, which is a key part of the work that we do. Now, the initial sector audit looked at close to 100 different communities of practice in total. We looked across all of vocational education NFE and audited online groups, networks, set up by sector bodies, technology companies, independent ones, as well as those led by individual groups and practitioners. The data we collect includes key indicators such as how active such a group is, the number of members involved, subject focus, governance, platforms or tool used, and so on. This year, we've looked at how things have changed from the last year, how many communities have stopped or started their activities, and important changes in the sector landscape. So some of the findings are here on this slide now, and I'll also put a link to the sector audit into the chat. But Lynn, I'm going to come to you in a minute just to see if you want to highlight one or two findings from this slide. One of the things that I wanted to start off with is the first number on the screen, which was that actually there's a 30% increase of the number of networks that we audited this year, which I think reflects the increase of collaboration and connection within the sector. What do you think, Lynn?
Yes, I think, it shows the real balance of what's going on. I think I'm not alone in saying that many people in FE really, really felt it when the TES further, the FE communities were closed. And that was individual forums, dedicated news. It was a really difficult time, but it was amazing to see, we're looking there on the right-hand side. Twitter stepped up and filled that community gap. We got 36 new communities adding to the landscape. And these communities really sort of, I suppose, making lemonade from the lemons of the pandemic, on Zoom, on Teams, particularly on Twitter. And I think it was just great to see them burgeoning. And for me, one of the really important things that we've seen in the last year is those individual communities coming together, what Lou Mycroft would call constellations, actually grouping and working together at times. And there's been some fantastic collaboration, which I think has been, really encouraging.
I agree completely. I think it also reflects on how much practitioners and researchers in the sector have decided to do it themselves rather than rely on kind of short-term funded networks or groups that are being set up and that come and go very quickly, which is, I think, one of the key problems we identified over the last, period, is that so much discontinuity. And I think the TES community is closing all 74 individual forums, including those dedicated to FE, is a really good example of that. Now, you've talked a little bit about joining things up, and one of the things that we established last year is a community map that is being remixed, and in a minute we might get the audience involved. But first, Lynn, who is on the map at the moment, and do you want to give any shout outs to those on the list?
Yes, of course. You can see, on our map there, we've got a list of some stars, and this ranges from everything with very specialist interest groups, for example, English FE, to things like everyone in education. We've got FE Tapestry, which is a community that grew out of PD North, which actually it's got so many different purposes. There's online support. There are videos to do with using ed tech. There are FE teachers on there blogging about their experiences with ed tech. So FE Tapestry is a great one to check out. Again, specific things like ESOL chat. But also, I think it's been phenomenally encouraging to see the FE and I'm sure HE communities, research communities, actually moving on online. So things like FE research meets have been going for several years, at colleges around the country who host them. And I think it was really fabulous to see that community moving into online gatherings, so that FE research is still being shared and disseminated, and people are celebrating it. And then finally, at the bottom, we've got things like Joy FE, which is, a values-led community. So we've got things there that are rooted in pedagogy, in specialist subject areas in FE, but also those identity and values-based communities, which is just so phenomenal, I think, to see the richness, Maren.
I agree. And one of the things I really enjoyed seeing this year is that there are quite a few communities showing up that are branching out beyond their core group and into broader communities, like the adult conversations, for example. I know that Joy FE isn't exclusively FE either. It does include and welcome everyone. So I think that's one of the things that we were hoping to encourage with the Twitter chat we had earlier today. And big shout out to everyone who took part. I thought it was a fascinating conversation.
It was, absolutely. And it's lovely to see again Twitter almost proving the hub where these communities can come together, and actually the engagement with it. Things like UKFE happening at 9 o'clock on a Thursday night. You'd think, oh, will people really turn up?
Yeah.
And yes, they do, because it really speaks to FE practitioners.
Well, we invite you now to have a bit of a practical couple of minutes with us and have a bit of fun. If you haven't come across it before, I really recommend you have a good rummage around the Visual Thinkery Remixer, or the fabulous remixer machine, as Brian Mathers, the creator, calls it. Now, we've been working with Brian for a long time, and those of you who've seen the little videos at the start and end of all the sessions will know that he's made many things with our community. But this map is one of the things we've been working on with him in the past year. And you can add yourself to the map. So if you have a hashtag that you want to include, here is your opportunity. I've posted the link in the chat on how to do it, and go to the map and select somewhere you want to go. I'm not sure if I'd rather hide on top of a snowy mountain right now, Lynn, or go to the little island that's got a sandy beach, but I'm sure we're all looking forward to our holidays enough to want to escape.
But everyone's going to head to the beach. It's just logical, isn't it? Absolutely. So yeah, we're really looking forward to watching people add themselves to the map, so we can leave a couple of minutes and let people get on with that.
Here is what to do if you do want to have a go, and please do. Doesn't have to be an FE hashtag. If you're joining in, I know that the LTAG chat, for example, is on there, but add your tag and you can customize the size and the color of the text. Then orientate your your map, and then you should be able to save your remix, and that way add yourself to the map. So yeah, we'll have a go, and you can have a look at how it develops. And I'll just have a look and see if I can, my screen is just loading and I wanted to see if I can maybe share what that looks like. Right.
Have we got it?
Yeah, I've got it coming up. So I'm just going to see if I can share that particular tab.
And as Marion says, there's such a huge switch over and cross-working between FE and HE that it's lovely to see HE or HE and FE people adding their tags onto there. So we would encourage that. Oh, that's fabulous.
So you can see there's new tiles being added, and I can see the Open EdSig, for example, is one of the ones that is on there, and that's going to come up in about 2 hours, I think, a session with Teresa and colleagues, the open house session. So if you want to do some remixing with us, please do feel free to add yourself to the map. Now I'm going to switch back into our presentation, because we certainly have more to share with our audience today. And one of the things we wanted to share, and specifically, is a showcase of excellent practice within the sectors that includes some fascinating examples of different types of work that's being carried out. One of the ones that I wanted to highlight for you is an immersive learning platform designed to with VR called Body Swaps, which we had in one of our case studies. And here is a link to all the videos for you to have a look at. Then I'm going to come to you in a minute in case there's one that you wanted to highlight in particular or talk about. I know that there's quite a few that you know more about, but the one I wanted to highlight was DigiLearn Sector, which is a community-wide hub for collaboration and knowledge exchange from UCL LAN CCL. So I'm just going to put a link into that as well. Into the chat, so in case you want to have a look at DigiLearn Sector and start exploring, that's one of the ones that I discovered through this. What about you, Lynn? Is there any that you want to highlight?
Oh, there's so many. I think the wonderful thing about the showcase is that it's not a long read. It's actually community founders and people who are active with the communities actually on video talking about them and their ethos of the community. So I think that's a great way of really putting over what they do. I mean, I'll come back to something like PD North, which is something that's evolved from initially an ETF funded program, and it's one of those wonderful things where we're seeing a community that's become independently sustainable, which is what we want. And it's just so good, I think, to see FE teachers finding their voices and blogging, and that's a great site for that. So there's not only, you know, practical things like posting to CPD opportunities, conferences, events like this, and lots of really useful sort of bite-sized learning videos around things like Zoom and using things like Jamboard in FE. But actually you've got the richness there of FE teachers doing a blog on ESOL, doing a blog on the challenges with integrating technology. And I think, you know, that's bringing, it's such a diversity, and we can see that in quite a few of the communities there. You know, like Sector Share, there's a real richness of technology recommendations, but also resources. And I think that one of the things that we've always found is that there's little silos in FE, and too many of these things are well kept secrets. So it's great to see things like AmplifyFE bringing those, you know, to wider attention, I think, Maren.
Yeah, I agree, Lynn. And I have to say, that's one of the real benefits, I think, of trying to join up the dots, and one of the reasons why we're so pleased to be here today is because there are a lot of best kept secrets and a lot of, I think, wasted effort trying to reinvent what other people have already done, just because it's hard to find that, and joining the dots is one of the key things we want to do. So I was thinking sort of from a strategic point of view as well, and I know many people here in the room will be working in FE and HE, or maybe across different sectors. But I wanted to just highlight the sort of strategic importance of the work that we're doing. And I wanted to share this quote with you from Jeff Greenwich, one of the trustees from UFI, about sort of what they see as the strategic importance of the communities of practice piece, and why that is so important, particularly in the current climate. So it's one of the things I think events like this help us to make a little bit of time for, but that is a really big challenge at the moment, having any kind of time for any of the for any of the things that we don't necessarily have to do, one Zoom or team meeting after the other. So the last piece of work that we want to share with you today is around online interaction and getting to know different communities of practice, because that's one of our key missions, is to try and help connect those who aren't already connected. And Lynn, in a minute, I'll hand over back to you to talk a little bit about this particular article and this resource. But I just wanted to give some examples of some of the things that we've been working on to help individual, particularly staff who are maybe not well networked already, get started. So one of the things we try and promote is how to select different communities for yourself, and how to, for example, find hashtags on Twitter, even how to use Twitter. Also, there's a networks page where you can find different types of communities. Some of them are quite formal, some of them are more subject focused, some of them are industry led, and some of them are teacher-led. So I think it's good to see that there's a whole range of kind of formal and informal opportunities to be getting involved with. And there's also, I think, a lot of different Twitter chats, for example, that you can get involved with. And one of the ones that we mentioned earlier, for example, the UK FE chat, I think that's one of the biggest ones. And I know many people in the room here will be familiar with the LTHE chat, which is weekly on a Wednesday evening. I'm thinking that might be actually tonight. But there's also more subject-focused ones, like maths ones, English ones, English as a foreign language ones. So there's particular ones, no matter what you're interested in. And at the Twitter chat at lunchtime today, we asked people about resources that they go to and communities that they go to. So I was really interested to see where people go. And I think the sort of personal learning Twitter network came up quite often. How about you, Lynn? Sorry, I've been chatting away. How about you? What are your thoughts on this?
I share your confusion and not quite knowing if it's Wednesday or not, or Thursday. So I'm right there with you. Yes, I think that's, and again, that's coming back to the richness of some very general communities and then some really specific ones. And I think that particularly for FE or HE practitioners who are just getting into using Twitter, they might be more familiar with something slightly more formal like LinkedIn, and Twitter can seem, quite a bewildering community. It's got its own language, it's got its own etiquettes, and it can, I think, for a lot of people, feel a little bit like falling into a fast-flowing river, particularly if you go along to something like UKFE chat, where you're bombarded by something like 6 to 10 questions in a packed hour, and everybody sort of piling in and answering. So I think it's invaluable to have, work that's been done by Emma and Chloe, looking at online interaction and just saying to people, look, just dip your toe in the water. You might choose one of the smaller communities, perhaps in your subject specialist area, like the NTECLA or ESOL communities, just to dip your toe in the water. And I think it's just so valuable for people who are getting into Twitter or looking to expand their network, just to have the signposting that AmplifyFE has been able to do, because I think I'm right in saying it's the first time that this kind of resource has been here as a one-stop shop, where somebody who's looking to expand their Twitter use in FE can just go along and get all of these recommendations. So yes, I'd absolutely recommend the article in Intuition, but also the Amplify FE site with those lovely signposts and guides for how to dip your toe into the water, and then how to expand your network once you feel that you're ready to.
Thanks, Lynn. That's a really good point, actually. And we're coming up into the last couple of minutes of our presentation. And I wanted to just reflect and maybe ask you as well, because I know that you work with lots of professionals from different backgrounds and sectors. And I wondered if there's anybody here in the room who's trying to kind of, branch out beyond their current known colleagues and their own sort of little bubble. Do you have any recommendations of, how can you try and learn about what you don't already know?
Well, I think, AmplifyFE is an absolutely great start, because you'll see general communities and then more specialist. But actually, if you want to dip into the existing communities, just because UKFE chat happens on a Thursday night, for example, at 9, or you've got your LTHE chat going on in different slots, doesn't mean that you can't use that hashtag on a Monday afternoon to say, hey, I'm a lecturer working in construction, or I'm an adult and community language lecturer. Hey, Twitter community, use the hashtag AmplifyFE, use the hashtag FE. What would you recommend? And actually putting those shout outs and asking people to retweet can be a fantastic way. I've done it to discover communities that I've not heard of. So I think the message is it's very, very welcoming there, and you will get people who will step in and be really, really free and generous with recommendations and things that you should do.
I can only echo that, and I hope that some of you in the room will take us up on that encouragement and use the hashtag AmplifyFE. Even if it's just to lurk and have a look around. But if you're feeling brave, if you want to engage, please do maybe do more than lurk and get involved in the conversation. So that's really our call to action. And before we finish, Lynn, there's a couple of things that I just wanted to highlight that are coming up in the next year, because while we do have a huge amount that's happened this year, there's actually more in store for next year. So one of the things I wanted to highlight is that there is going to be the next sector audit. We've got funding to do it for 2 more years. So next year there will be an expanded version of the sector audit. And one of the focuses for next year will be diversity and inclusion. So that's one of the key things we want to look at next year. And then we're also expanding our community activities. And I think there will be a new special interest group dedicated to vocational education and FE, just to help provide some more structural support for all these different individual bubbles of practitioners who are already sharing their practice. And there's a lot more in store, which is very exciting, I think, for us to see what's happening. Is there anything on the calendar for 2022 other than potentially seeing each other in person that you're particularly looking forward to?
Oh, absolutely. There are a few tentative bookings of conferences in, June and July. And I think, Maren, you were actually teasing the idea of an ALTC face-to-face, which, we can only cross our fingers. But I think it's really, really, really welcome to see the idea of a special interest group for vocational education. It's very, very welcome. And I think that these communities, hopefully, I can see them as something that will morph over time. Sometimes they're face-to-face, maybe once a year, then they're going to have monthly get-togethers. And I think it's all part of the, I hate to say it, new normal, but I think it's something that we should encourage. So yeah, we're looking forward to all of these things. And I think we would just appeal, wouldn't we? Put yourself on the map. So there's another sector audit happening. So if you're not on the map yet, please get there, or just tweet with the hashtag AmplifyFE and let us know about you and the wonderful things that you're doing.
Absolutely. I can only echo that. And we've run out of time now. So we are at the end of our formal presentation, but Lynn and I will stick around for a few more minutes and answer any questions that you might have. So this is the moment where you can post anything you want to know or tell us, want us to tell you more about in the chat. And if you have to rush off and get going to the next session or whatever Zoom or Teams call you're on next, then I want to say a really big thank you for joining us. I think we all appreciate at the moment how much time pressure everybody's under, and it's a special privilege that you came to our session today to hear and learn about AmplifyFE. So thank you to everybody who's joined us from Durham, from South London, gloomy Glasgow, Didcot in Oxfordshire. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, do please post any questions you might have in the chat.
Yes, thanks so much, everybody. It's been lovely finding out where you're from. We certainly got the country covered in this section. Yeah,
I think so too. Yeah. All right, Lynn, I can't see any questions just yet in the chat. So what I might do is say thanks again and then end the broadcast. But Lynn and I will continue to have a look at the chat. And if you have any questions, do please post them into the chat and we will pick those up. So again, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for joining us.